Guido Corbetta will now speak first, and Paolo Morosetti from Bocconi will come later. Guido started about 20 years ago with Bocconi on family companies with research and teaching. And at Bocconi there are several courses on all the levels, from undergraduate, graduate and MBA. And this year in March they founded an endowed chair on strategic management on family business, founded by the Family Business Network in Italy and EY. In Italy he is also a member of some boards of large corporations, and Guido also works as a consultant. Guido will do the introductions and host this event from now on and introduce the other speakers. He will run us through the program.
I want to thank a lot Lauren and Niklas for this event. Just to tell you, we thought about this event in May, June, and in a few months they've organized this, I think, interesting program. And so thanks a lot for the great job that you have done. So we'll start with governance. Why? Because we think that governance of family companies is probably, I think with the work that you can do on values, so probably manage values of family companies and manage governance of family companies, I think are two key ingredients for successful family companies. Then we have a session devoted to strategy. Obviously it's difficult to manage a session devoted to strategy with companies that come from different industries. So for each industry you can have different strategies, different issues, but we try to focus mainly on the strategic management process. And then we have in the afternoon a session devoted to finance. We think that in Europe, so not only in Finland, not only in Italy, but in Europe, the companies, they have to grow in the next years, much more than in the past. Probably they have to grow through acquisition. And so it's important to manage finance. It's important to understand how it's possible to collect much more equity for financing growth. And finally, we have a session of, the most typical topic of family companies, of conferences on family companies, that is succession. So next generation. So we'll close this afternoon with a session devoted to next generation with some young entrepreneurs and young people. Italian family companies in comparison with non-family companies, and you see the performance are much better. Obviously, both you see that from 2007 to 2011, the performances of Italian companies in general, they have some problems, but you see that family companies, they are better. And that's important, you can have family companies that may last for more than 100 years. In any case, they started more than 100 years ago. So it's possible. It's possible to continue for a lot of years, for decades, for generations. And it's possible also to last for 200 years. You know that worldwide there is an association, the name is De Nokiens, is an association of companies that are controlled by a family. They started more than 200 years ago. Second suggestion. These data are quite clear. So the Italian data confirm that some experience is good, but too much experience is bad. Gianni Agnelli is the grandfather of John, and he wrote, groups like ours typically go through 3 stages in their development: a time of strength, a time of privilege, and a time of vanity. For me, the first is the only one that counts. So you need to look to the future of the company, the future of the economy, the future of your industry, the future of your family. So you have to be focused on the future, and you have to develop a vision of the future. Second point, a bit of luck. It's important. We can say, I mean, not a lot about this, obviously, but I think that sometimes you can catch the luck or not. Sometimes there are some opportunities, and you can catch or not. So, but a bit of luck is important, and a lot of energy, a lot of time devoted to the company, but also to the family.
Thank you very much for getting here. I have been rarely to Finland, but I have to tell you that I have a weak spot here because my father-in-law, who was Russian, he fought till the last days of the White Russian Army, but he was aide de camp to Mannerheim, and so that is of course important in this country because that's your national hero, and I'm proud of that. Secondly, I think we need today a few more Mannerheims. That would be very helpful. To illustrate my experience, I choose to compare two diametrically opposed stories. One concerning my own family company, called Royal Wessane in the Netherlands, and the other about the Belgian brewer AB InBev, of which I was a board member for 15 years, and at the same time the investment banker. And as you know, they have been pretty active over those last 15 years. Royal Wessane was incorporated, you were talking about 200 years, it was incorporated in 1765 by two cousins, Adrian Wessane and Dirk Laan, which was my great-great-great-great-grandfather, just north of Amsterdam. My grandfather, who was the last truly competent family CEO, stepped down in the early 50s. But unfortunately, he made a few crucial mistakes before stepping down. The first one was to bring the company public under pressure from other non-active family members. And there was really no need to do that at the time. If it has to be done, it has to be done, but it was not necessary. But more importantly, without organizing future family control. The company was subsequently managed by a combination of more or less competent family members, mostly remote cousins and so-called professional managers. At the same time, and we have forgotten this, but at the same time the Dutch mentality became increasingly anti-family and anti-capitalism. This, together with the Dutch cooptation system of the boards, gradually led to a loss of control over the board by the family. Needless to say, that the company today is worth a fraction of what it used to be worth when the family was in control. The #1 brewer in the world, AB InBev, started also in the early 19th century, so 50 years later than my family company, and as a small brewer in the city of Leuven in Belgium. The name at that time was Artois. You can still find that on the bottles with the brand Stella Artois. The three Belgian families were permanently bound together for an automatically renewable period of 25 years. That contract was also subscribed by the Brazilian shareholders. So past frictions between the Belgians were thus eliminated and family control at the board level got reinforced and consolidated. Operational management became best in class because of the Brazilians. And then the third, of course, the third point, a worldwide beer group was thus created with the objective already set in my first discussions that we should try to take over Anheuser-Busch within a few years, which was done, as you probably know. Never ever lose control over your family company. At worst, share control with a partner, but make sure that your interests are aligned over time and that you can buy your partner out if things don't work out as planned. This is, for me, by far the most important lesson. Lesson 2. Don't go public if you can avoid it. i.e., as long as you can finance your company's development privately or with reasonable borrowings. However, don't get in the hands of commercial banks. You always need them. When you need them, they don't come. And when you don't need them, they will come to your office all the time. Lesson 3. Create a limited exit mechanism for family members who need liquidity. Large exits, however, should be made impossible. Or you should make them so expensive for the person who wants to get out that he either can't or he accepts, let's say, preemptive rights with a 50% discount. This is a practical solution I encountered and which worked. And even some people went out for that 50% discount, but it's easy to finance. You buy them out and it's easy to finance. Lesson 4. If your family is not anymore able to produce 1 or 2 really qualified successors, go outside, but reinforce board control through very regular and active board meetings and make sure that management and shareholders' interests are truly aligned. 2 things here. Very active boards. Active at AB InBev, we met 3 days a month, which in fact is a week. It takes a lot of time of the board, but you know, I know all the accounts from every country. Interests between management and shareholders truly aligned. What does it mean? It means essentially that management gets well paid. Now, well paid is not a few million if you're very successful. It can be tens or even hundreds of millions if you're very, very successful. And I have seen that, and it works. Be wary of advice from management consultants and investment bankers. Their interests are not aligned with yours, and they don't take any risks.
The role of the board within the decision process is very important, very relevant. You have a dangerous board of directors. So the board of directors can be very useful, but can be also very dangerous. And mainly if you build up a board of directors composed only of family members, friends of family, or supplier of the company, as consultant or you can say professor, I don't know. So I mean, you need very competent directors. It's important it's useful because we can see where we have to work. So I think we have to define in a very professional way the composition of the board of directors. We need to understand exactly the skills that we need, and probably we have to work a lot on this area more than industry knowledge, technology, on the operation.
And thanks to Niklas and Laurent for arranging this. I've learned a lot already this morning. I have to say that it is great to see so good content in a conference of this sort. It's not easy to build it so well as it's been built so far. What I'd like to say in support of what has been presented earlier is that the design of the board is really important to family businesses, paying a lot of attention there, using outside expertise, using a lot of time and a lot of buy-in from everybody involved, the managers and the owners and co-board members, is very important. Many family businesses think that it's important only to make sure that the board has trust in the managing director. But when you recruit outside board members, make sure that the managing director is involved and feels comfortable with you, whom you recruit to the board. What I wanted to do this morning is to explain to you what happened in a Finnish very well-known company, Paulig, when the dominant owner decided one morning that he was no longer to chair the company. In a situation where all the mechanisms that you consider needed were in place, but did not work. But there was a problem when we got going, and that is that there was no link actually between the owners and the board in this structure. And this was the problem. There was a family council, a good structure where family members met regularly. There was a structure of owners who met on a regular basis and discussed relevant owners-related questions every month in a minuted, structured way. Everything by the book. The board had a board charter. The management knew what the role of the board was, and that was fine too. But there was a complete disconnect. The Owners' Council members were not supposed to sit on the board. And outside of anybody's comfort zone, we selected a person who you will have met or will meet here, Stig Gustafsson, a very seasoned, there you are, good, board professional. Good morning, Stigo. And what obligation is there to share information? Any other issues? None of these things that really are at the heart of how the board and the owners were supposed to interact had been defined, despite all the greatest documents. So we worked through all of these. So the result was a list of recommendations as to who is in charge of what, who does what. And later on, this has all been complemented by an Audi 2 process whereby we put meat on the bones.
It's a real honor to be here, telling the story, and how we try to solve these issues we are talking about. Just 2 words on my role or myself. I'm a mechanical engineer, and my passions are materials and product design. And the product you see here is one of the latest products of my company, and this product won the Best of the Best Red Dot Prize in Germany just this year, just in July. All our business started from the founder, from normally a material and the technology. And to these material and technologies we had shapes, design, and everything connected with the product and the markets. So what was somebody before was saying that normally in the family business the skills on design, production, operation are in. I have to say that for the Italian business it's absolutely true. But the important thing to say is that we are a very local company. We are very strongly connected to our roots. Our family lives in the center of Italy on the Adriatic Sea, and we like to be there. We are strongly integrated with the social network around the world, and we feel the social responsibility to be there, having around 2,000 employees all around 2-3 cities. We are not spread out Italy. We are very strongly concentrated in the same area. As you can see from the slide, that any one of the brothers, if you want to create his own business, all related to all the families. So our group of company was born inside the family. The latest is to have approved leadership towards the family members, because normally the question is, I think that you are not the best, I think that I could do better than you, and blah, blah, blah. These are the issue. And we find these 2 solutions, if you want, and we did together. The family pact is created to manage the set of relationship between companies and family members. And the main elements that compose these are the common values, so define which are our values, what the family would like to maintain in the future. To explain very clearly which are the difference between the representativeness and the governance of the companies. Both are important, but we have to have in mind exactly the difference between the two.
Yeah, family companies, non-family companies, I think if you look for board members, you should first define your criteria. what is needed at the board. You clearly need somebody who knows how to analyze accounts. So you need somebody with an accounting background or a good banker, but most good bankers don't really read well accounts. But accountants do. So you need that. Then secondly, if you want to get international, then obviously you need international people who have. So it very much, you need a certain skills. You were talking about HR there. HR is getting more and more important. It's not just how to attract people, how to train them, but also how to compensate, how to remunerate them. So you need skills there. So in a board, you need family members or non-family members. You really need several people with different backgrounds and different strengths and weaknesses.
Needs are different from time to time, and of course we are trying to integrate the skills in the board. For instance, just now we are thinking of some kind of operation, one of the operative, and of course we are trying to attract some managers that we know, because of course the question is to be open, to have a list of possible CEO. You have to know them.
In Italy it is very important, but I think worldwide it is important that you know the director, the candidates, before. And that's the only issue that I see sometimes, is that it's not clear who interviews the candidates. No, because sometimes the family, for example, they say, no, we want to interview all together. So you have 7 people that interview the new candidate.
How should you incentivize? What's a fair incentive? Is this something that should be communicated to the rest of the family? Is this a matter that should be decided by the General Assembly? Or is this purely a matter between the board and the management?
A very good question. We know the stick, what's the carrot?
It's, certainly, General Assembly, it depends if you're a public company or not, and where you are located, because the laws are different from one country to the other. In the Netherlands, you can't decide, the board cannot decide about compensation. It has to be, the compensation policy has to be approved by the General Assembly and then executed by the board. So you have a legal constraint there. And that depends from country to country. I don't know all the places where, I don't know the rules in every country, but I know that exists. When I talk about alignment of the interests of the shareholders and management and shareholders and the board, because those also should be aligned, you have to be, first you have to realize that they are not aligned, and that you have to try to align them as much as possible. Become rich, if I may say so, although that word is not allowed anymore today. With ABN Bev, it was very clear. I mean, the CEO is worth 200 million today, and he's largely worth it. There's no question about it. It's a public company. There has never been any question in the General Assembly about this remuneration, because this company in 15 years was worth 1 billion when I got in. It's worth today 150 billion in 15 years. So you can incentivize, and it is a question of money at the end of the day. Of course, work atmosphere, whatever, it's all very important, but at the end of the day, that is not what people are working for, but it's what people want to see when they succeed. And success should be the same for them as for the management.
If I would add maybe 2 thoughts. One would be that alignment between the owners, the board and the management is a lot easier if you start with what is the purpose? What is it that we're trying to do? Because once that is sorted and there is a mental picture that this is where we are heading, this is what we believe this company should be, you have a mental alignment, and then you can put in incentive systems that are aligned with the time horizon of the different stakeholders, because the owners in a family business think about perpetuity. The managers, for very good reasons, will think primarily in terms of 3 years or maybe maximum 5 years, but the same mechanisms will not always incentivize the same way, even if you have the same purpose. So I would say go for the purpose first and then make sure the incentive structures are in line with the time horizon of the stakeholder in question.
Your Excellency.
Thank you. I would like the panel to ask to comment on the gender politics of family companies. When my great-grandfather wanted to discuss the future of the family company, he invited his 3 sons and the husbands of his 3 daughters. But the daughters were not invited. But this was 1948. And he actively encouraged his daughters to marry competent managers. But of course that didn't work.
I don't know if I answer.
A very political answer, yes. Would you like to comment quickly on your view on this gender issue?
I'll just make the point that a surprising number of Finnish old family businesses have had very strong women who have made the company succeed through difficult times. So we have a lot of respect and hope that we get good, strong women on the boards of our companies, and many chair Finnish well-respected family businesses or manage them today. And we want that's very natural for this country.
Strategy is about creating value. There is a large discussion, as you know, about what does it mean success. Someone it is more interested about shareholders, we heard also before, otherwise about the stakeholder perspective, so the company has also a sort of responsibility in the society. And this is an aspect particularly important, as Guzzini shows before. So to put together different business connecting in some way, you are talking about corporate strategy, and in this case you have to ask yourself if your corporate strategy is creating value, if the idea that you put together different industry creates some values at the end. Family firms are really a sort of good example, because they have a different way of defining success, economic and non-economic performances. This is something that you have to keep in mind. Of course, in many companies, ownership is a driver of change, but in family business, where family is committed, active in the business, this driver of change has an important role. This means that when you scan your environment, when you analyze your firm, you need also to analyze what is the status of the ownership and the expectation about the future. And this element should be incorporated in your plan or in the process to develop your plan.
We heard about the ideal strategy process here just a minute ago. The litmus test for strategy and for families comes when you have a successful company. A successful company that goes into 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th generation. When the family becomes big, when the family is rich, where you make a lot of profit, and when you grow away from the company. These companies, I start with Kone, the elevator company, which is, as those of you familiar with the Finnish business environment know, that it is an extremely successful company. 7 billion euros of sales, 1 billion, close to 1 billion euros in operative profit last year. Present in close to 100 countries all over the world. It is only in its 4th generation. The company was not established, it was bought by a gentleman by the name of Harald Herlin in the 1920s. Harald Herlin was actually not known for elevators or cranes or whatnot. He was known for bringing water toilets into this city. The Pekka was not stupid. He invested his money that he got from getting out of these businesses into developing the elevator business. Rockefeller in America was thought of being stupid. He had some real estate in Manhattan, which he sold for $1 million. 3 years later, that real estate was worth $3 million. Everybody thought that Rockefeller was stupid. Nobody noticed that Rockefeller invested this $1 million into railroads, and 3 years later, that railroad shares were worth $10 million.
Today, I will share with you my observations and experience as a third-generation member of the Sabancı family. When I was first asked to be a speaker here, I started to evaluate and later judge my business life. Then I considered other holdings and conglomerates around the world and decided to combine my practices with other models. I will try to mix my experience as an executive in Sabancı Holding, founded by my late grandfather, and later as founder of several other companies. As revenues increased and IPOs realized, the structure of the Eastern companies started to resemble to their Western counterparts. Divisions became independent companies with shares sold in stock market or sold to foreign companies or private equities. Family members are either running the main holding company or serving on the board of directors, slowly pass the flag to professional executives.
Inherently, family businesses are actually more inclined to intuitively be quite sophisticated in developing brands over the long term. And this is because it relates to family reputation. And we have tried to explain this for quite a long time through the metaphor of an iceberg, where to put the emphasis on what's beneath the surface. These are what we call the permanent brand builders. Those who are closest to delivering the value, the actual value to the customers or consumers of a business. It is important to understand that to all the stakeholders around the business, the perception they have about the business is the reality that dictates their actions or directs and guides their actions towards that business, which directly influences the costs and the revenues of a business. And this trinity consists of the combination, the fusion of strategy, culture and brand as the fundamental drivers of the success of a business. So a value proposition is at the heart of the directional idea that states the why of the business. Today, with all online media, etc., the notion of transparency has become such an important influencer of businesses that today it's incredibly important that the brand and the culture match. The culture cannot be different to the brand and vice versa.
As a third generation, we are around 27 cousins. That was also some kind of disadvantage within the family group. So we decided Sabancı Holding should be run by professionals. And we should, as a member, only can be as a board member.
I think there's a natural development when it comes to family businesses that usually in depending on the scope of geographical scope you have, if it's more narrow, then the companies tend to diversify quite extensively, and during the first few generations there's normally diversification, and then you start to focus more and more as you go more and more global.
What's the academic approach to this?
On this large diversification, yes. There is a little bit of debate, because if you take the perspective of business, the pure business, diversification is not so encouraged. We say that you have to focus on the core business because it's better that you develop this competence. But if you take the family approach, sometimes diversification helps in managing the complexity of the family, giving more space of the different people that could have also good qualities.
Thank you very much for the floor, Mario Bartoli from the Embassy of Italy. I have, I hope I'm allowed to pose two very brief questions of a general kind. The first one, which are the peculiarities, if any, of the family business in Europe in comparison to family business in other areas? The second one is, with Europe facing a less than bright, let's say, economic performance, how family business can fit into the objective of setting the pace for a renewed growth in Europe, and what kind of policies from the European Union family business are expecting in order to be able to contribute to the growth. Thank you.
Very large questions, I would say. They were not simple questions. Would you like to comment?
You would like to? No, I prefer not to.
It is a treaty. A small treaty about... No, probably I can open the discussion about this point briefly. First point, it's difficult to define that there is a European model of family business. Probably there are different culture, different way of thinking. From north to south, we know that there is different form of family capitalism. Here in the north of Europe, you have a lot of multi-generational families that are well organized in managing complexity and probably also large groups. In the south of Europe, there are more small and medium family businesses, on some point of view more entrepreneurial and more focused on one or two people rather than on a group of people. So it's difficult to find a unique model for Europe. This is the first point. Oh, sorry, about this point. We have to keep in mind that the legal context in North Europe and in South Europe are completely different, and this influences how you manage, for example, transition. The second point, really briefly, European Commission only a few years ago, thanks to one of your colleagues that was sitting here in the room, so Philip Aminov, introduced the first study about, or launched the first study about family business in Europe in order to understand what are the unique qualities of these companies compared with other forms of ownership. It was a result at the end of a sort of advocacy efforts done by the Association of a Family Business, the Finnish one, the Italian one, the French one, and so on. What is the current situation? The current situation that we have not a definition recognized by the European law, and this is a weakness. We have a definition of family business used to understand, to do the research about family business. But if you have not something recognized legally, you cannot introduce some legislation in favor of this company. But there is a lot of efforts to do in order to do benchmark between the different European countries, for example, in tax, corporate tax, inheritance tax, something like that, by the European Commission, in order to understand in which way we can support them in growing through the different generations, rather than favoring business transfer when business transfer is not the right choice.
Industrial businesses to enable them to differentiate their offerings in the face of Asian competition, low-cost production, etc. And another example of actually very successful industrial branding is the company that Stig has spearheaded, Konecranes, who actually based on they have a very strong directional idea, which is lifting businesses. that directs everything, the productivity orientation, their value proposition focused more on highest life cycle value versus lowest life cycle cost, which is the industry standard.
I think that is the main issue in family companies. Then it's important to consider that family companies are companies, and so you have to consider the strategy of the company. And then the idea is that if you want to realize a strategy, you need resources. One of the most important resources is financial resources, our financial resources. And so we decided to focus on the issue on financial resources. I introduce briefly the point with these few slides. If you think about the equilibrium of the structure of the balance sheet, I think it's important to reflect on an issue. The issue is that when you want to grow in your country, in your business, when you are small or medium size, it's possible, I mean, to probably to invest to have resources, to obtain resources from the banks. But if you want to invest in long-term strategies, so innovation, based on acquisition, based on internationalization in very different markets, I think you need some resources, long-term resources, because these are long-term investments, so you need long-term resources. Sale of non-core assets, and this one is one of the reasons because I think that diversification is a good strategy for families, for family businesses, because it's important to have some option when you decide to focus on one business. Equity from the owning family, so sometimes the family can decide to invest more equity, or you can use some external resources, so the IPO, private equity, or we can say also bonds. So the position of Philip is quite clear. It was quite clear 1 year ago, then I don't know if he changed the idea, but it's quite clear. It's impossible for a family business to be listed without some negative consequences. You can have other similar ideas. This one is the chairman of Risogallo. It's a very old company in Italy. We don't think in quarters, we think in generations.
Even if these companies have really good numbers, sometimes the IPO was not the right choice for them. Some other times, unfortunately, we saw companies with great numbers, great management that we would have really welcomed on the markets, and that they just didn't come to the market. So we decided to launch this program that is called Elite, and we launched it in Italy a couple of years ago in April 2012, and it's now been extended also to our UK company, the London Stock Exchange themselves, in April 2014. So we're quite proud of having exported one time from Italy to the UK, one of the ideas within the exchange.
One of the most fatal reasons for the present downturn on the European economy has been the lack of systematic and functioning capital market services for those promising companies which have already proven their ability for growth and employment in their home country. We are talking about companies which have passed their seed money stage even a long time ago, but are still too small SMEs to be able, for example, to become publicly listed, among other corresponding options which normally are available for growing companies. Okay, this was the background, and a little bit frustration, as you heard. In order to stop these deeply damaging trends for Europe and Finland in the first place, a group of well-known experienced business executives and entrepreneurs in Finland have now, after close to 3 years' work, created a basis for maintaining at home those young, promising and extremely important business units and real growth companies for the future of the country and Europe by creating the first tools for a new capital market category, which is named root financing. After seed should come root.
Hi. First of all, thank you, Hanno, and thank you, Anna. we need you guys, seriously. The European economy, we need the root finance, we need to make this economy grow again, we need to get optimism back, and Anna, we need the coaching, because so many companies, they've got no clue what they're doing. Let's start there, okay? Because they don't have the experience. We start there. And just to get back a bit on why am I standing here, I was talking to Laurent and to Nicholas, and they were like, yeah, but seriously, you know all this stuff, you know? I mean, come here and talk a bit, be a bit relaxed, take it easy, and explain to people, how is the European economy working? So just going to the normal pecking order of finance, first you start off with your families, or maybe you start off with your bank account that your grandfather gave you once, way back, and there's 200 euros in it or something, right? Then you go to your mother and you say, Mom, seriously, I want to start this company. She said, no, no, seriously. I saved all this money for later on, and now I'm going to give it to you? No, you can't even make your bed, right? And then you go to your friends, and you talk to your friends, and they're like, but no, if I give you money, seriously, last night, if you're going to do that again, that's not the way to invest. Probably the other way around, right? So we start off with the people that actually trust us and know all the weaknesses about us, and hopefully believe in us, right? And then after a while, you go to the bank and you say, well, I need a credit line. I need this, I need working capital, I need to get this company going, and I need your support, okay? And as you go just from the first steps to the second step, then, I mean, your experience increases quite significantly, because suddenly you have to start explaining to the bank, okay, this is my annual report, I promise it's an accountant that's gone through it, and everything is in order, and I'm basically not taking out any money out of this company currently, I just want it to grow. We will have to sacrifice ownership in the future somehow, or we're going to get even more in debt. And I think debt is one of the major problems for the crisis, so I'm not going to advocate for that. On the contrary, I think there are equity solutions which are probably better. And if we're looking then at the traditional lines of finance, the banks are currently extremely impaired. They don't have the capacity, they don't want to lend, they can't lend. And they're not going to take on risk which they don't understand. And looking at SMEs, it's extremely heterogeneous, the differences between companies, and you have to adapt your credit model quite a lot, so you don't really understand what they're doing. And a lot of the firms are maybe also dependent of one or two greater clients, and if one of them disappears to China, then you disappear somewhere else, right?
What I can say is basically in Italy we've had different cases of private companies, and some companies are so cash positive and so visible to external investors, and they have all the internal tools to deal with growth in any form that they just don't need to come to the capital markets. But other companies, and I'm speaking also of 1 billion revenue companies, or so quite important companies, they just decided not to come to the market for fear of losing the ownership of the 100% ownership of the companies, and they got indebted to make an acquisition, and that was just a pity. So it really depends on a case by case.
We take a global perspective because, as you know, family businesses are the dominant organizational form across the world, so also succession is a global phenomenon. And it's not enough just to have a look at succession in one specific country, be it Switzerland, Finland, or Italy, or whatever. We need to compare succession intentions across the globe, and we need to investigate what are kind of institutional and cultural factors that drive succession intentions. Succession intentions are really weak across the globe. They believe that they can be a good entrepreneur. They do not want to become successors, because they rather prefer creating an own firm. And what we see that, which is good news, there is no kind of adverse selection. Because intentional successors in well-performing firms, they are not kind of less motivated than in poorly performing firms. They want to challenge themselves, they perceive that they have the skills, they want to reach something, they want to achieve something, and they want to realize business and entrepreneurial opportunities. Quick outlook. I was kind of presenting you insights about a study published in 2012. The next one is coming out soon. It will be published before Christmas. Even more countries, even more universities, even more next generation members. And what we see there is that succession intentions in 2014 are even lower than in 2011.
My family is the founding shareholder with the 80% of the stake of the group, and we found minority shareholder in Generali Assicurazioni 8 years ago. We were looking for growing, and we found this partner, which was not only a financial partner but also an industrial partner. Next generation and future of family business has a lot to do with managing people, selecting people that have the good capabilities, attract them, of course, make them grow, and grow together. And we can guarantee continuity, and also we can act as guardian of our values, because as our people said in the video, it's also a matter of values and passion for what we do.
On the issue of succession, governance, education, and perhaps also inspiration, I want to share some thoughts with you about creating the right preconditions for family company survival and for preparing the next generation. This picture, you have it, but you can't access it. And this is, I think, one of the reasons why family companies fail. Somebody wants to sell, you start fighting, and there it goes. So how do you build then a governance for a family company? Now, here again, there are two extremes. You have the single family company with a couple of generations. Here you have the kitchen table governance, which probably works for a few years at least. But the complexity increases really exponentially when you go towards the right-hand side. So this we have tried to separate ownership issues from operating issues, and I believe it has worked pretty well so far. And it has worked. As I said, I don't know if we will live happily ever after, but at least till the next generation shift. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. May I ask you to sit and to join us in the panel discussion at the end? Last but not least, we have a sort of touch of entrepreneurship that is quite important, because as you see, succession intention are influenced by the family structure, and in the case of Alstrom family we have a clear example of complexity that could be managed in some way, and a lot of efforts probably you do in every day in managing the processes. But then we need to come back to the quest of people, person, and the entrepreneurial orientation. And we want to close this session with an example of a new entrepreneur in the area of sustainability that is quite important for us. I kindly ask Arash Azami to join us on stage, and he will share with us his experience as an entrepreneur and his specific and particular business model in terms of sustainability. Thank you so much, Arash, for your time.
Most welcome. First off, I'd like to congratulate you on your stamina. So we went to Niger in West Africa, and this is us watching TV, and already this is a unique image because this was one of the two TVs in the town that we lived in. And why were there two TVs? Not even because nobody had money for a TV, but because we hardly ever had electricity. The world's population right now, counting 7.1 billion people, out of these 7.1 billion people, 3.5 billion at this moment do not have access to energy resources. The other 3.6 billion do have access to energy resources. But for 85%, they have to rely on resources that are not theirs, that are non-renewable, and are controlled in price, in availability by other parties. That means that we have a problem and beautiful things like these. And we want to keep that time save, even though we know for a fact that our fossil fuel consumption is going to go down over time. Why is it going to go down? There's only a few reasons possible, actually. One is they're gone. It's a bit of a grim story. Two is we're gone. That's a bit of a more grim story. And three, we found something better. And I like three, because the Stone Age did not end because we ran out of stones. We found something better. And Richard Buckminster Fuller said, you don't change things by fighting the existing realities. If you want to change something, build a new model that makes the old model obsolete. So rather than fighting the energy regime or the energy system that we were amidst, rather than yelling boo at all fossil fuel producers, I decided to shake hands with them and share a stage with Jeroen van der Veer, who used to be the CEO of Shell, but give the option of another model.